Welcome to this explainer on Japanese shrines in temples. So, you're a foreign tourist planning your very first trip to Japan. Let me tell you, you are in for an absolutely incredible experience. But, navigating the unwritten rules of these beautiful, sacred locations, it can sometimes feel a little bit daunting, right? Well, today, we're going to turn any potential cultural friction into a really fun, respectful appreciation of Japan's sacred spaces. Let's dive right in and make sure you travel with absolute confidence. We've actually been seeing this trend lately where completely innocent mistakes are turning into viral moments. Take this quote from a recent discussion on Reddit's Japan travel photos community. They noted that Japan's sacred temples are starting to quietly push back against certain tourist behaviors, and recently, clothing has become part of the conversation. So, what does this all mean? Let's explore exactly why these spaces matter so much to locals and how you can enjoy them beautifully without accidentally stepping on any cultural toes. Here's our quick agenda for today. First, the sacred space anomaly. Second, the history of Shinto and Buddhism. Third, basic manners for shrines. Fourth, basic manners for temples. And finally, modern clothing and rules. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the sacred space anomaly. So, recently, there have been some truly shocking behavior spotted at these sites. We're talking about tourists doing pull-ups on the sacred torii gates, striking yoga poses right in front of the main temple halls, or just sprawling out and picnicking on sacred stone steps. Crazy, right? But the absolute crucial point here is that these actions aren't usually malicious. They really just stem from a simple lack of awareness. To locals, you gotta remember, these are places of deep prayer first and tourist spots second. They're sanctuaries, not jungle gyms or photo studios. Moving right along to Section 2, History of Shinto and Buddhism. To really get the rules, we need a quick history lesson. For centuries, Shinto, which is Japan's indigenous religion rooted in nature worship, and Buddhism, which arrived from the continent around the 6th century, were actually beautifully blended together. This concept is called Shinbutsu Shugo, or syncretism. Historically, they weren't strictly separated at all until the Meiji era. And this perfectly explains why you might still see elements of both mixed together in a single location today. It's also why Japanese culture is so incredibly flexible. Seriously, someone might celebrate a birth at a shrine, marry in a church, and then have a Buddhist funeral. It's a fascinating mix. But as a visitor, how do you actually tell them apart quickly? Well, here is your ultimate cheat sheet. If you're at a shrine, look for a torii gate, they're usually red or white, at the entrance, along with komainu, those awesome lion dog statues standing guard. You'll also see Shinto priests dressed in white. Now, on the flip side, if you're at a temple, you'll be greeted by a massive wooden Sanmon gate. You'll see Buddhist statues inside, and you'll probably spot monks wearing traditional robes. While they do sometimes overlap, spotting these key features will literally tell you instantly where you are and which set of rules you need to follow. Okay, Section 3, Basic Manners for Shrines. Your visit starts the exact moment you arrive at the torii gate. The etiquette here is super simple but deeply respected. You just bow once before entering. And hey, here is a pro tip that so many tourists completely miss. Always avoid walking directly in the center of the pathway. Traditionally, the very center of the path is reserved for the gods to walk. I mean, you don't want to bump into a god, right? So after your initial bow, just step to the side and walk along the edges of the path. Plus, it practically helps with the flow of foot traffic anyway. As you stroll up the path, you'll run into the Temazuya, which is the water purification pavilion. This is where you cleanse yourself before greeting the gods, and you're going to do this all with just one single ladle of water. Here's how it goes. First, wash your left hand, then your right hand. Next, pour a little water into your left hand to rinse your mouth. Crucial tip here, never ever touch your mouth directly to the ladle. Finally, hold the ladle vertically so the remaining water runs down and cleans the handle for the next person. It's just a really beautiful, mindful little ritual. All right, so when you reach the main hall to pray, you'll first toss your coin into the wooden box. And get this, believe it or not, some shrines even accept a digital QR code donation nowadays. How cool is that? Anyway, after your offering, ring the bell if there is one. Then you're going to perform the classic Shinto sequence. 2 bows, 2 claps, 1 bow. That's 2 deep bows, 2 sharp claps right in front of your chest to get the god's attention, a brief moment of silent prayer with your hands together, and finally, 1 last deep bow. Now, fun fact for you, not all shrines use the 2-clap roll. At places like Izumo Taisha in Shimene, Usajingu in Oita, and Yahakiko Shrine in Niigata, the tradition is actually 4 claps. But honestly, do not stress out if you forget, if you're ever in doubt, or if the whole sequence just feels a bit too complicated. Simply pressing your hands together and bowing deeply is perfectly fine. At the end of the day, your genuine feeling of respect is what truly matters to the locals and, to the gods. Let's move on to Section 4, Basic Manners for Temples. So just like shrines have torii gates, temples have sanmon gates. When you're passing through a sanmon gate, you really need to pay attention to your feet. Do not step on the wooden threshold at the bottom of the gate entrance. You gotta step over it. Some folks say stepping on it is literally like stepping on the Buddha's head. Ouch! On a practical level, obviously, it prevents wear and tear on these gorgeous historic wooden structures, but spiritually, stepping over it is a profound sign of respect and mindfulness. Once you're inside the temple grounds, you'll usually spot a large incense burner. Bathing in this smoke is said to purify you. Now, if you are lighting a bundle of incense yourself, there's a very specific, absolute rule. Once you light it, extinguish the flame with a gentle wave of your hand. Never, ever blow on it with your breath. See, your breath is considered worldly and impure, so fanning the flame out with your hand is the correct, respectful way to handle the whole shebang. Now, when you approach the main temple hall to pray, the sequence changes completely from what we just learned at the shrine. You toss your coin, and then you just press your hands together quietly, a beautiful gesture known as gusho, and you bow deeply. That's it. So the absolute most crucial point to remember is this. At a temple, there is absolutely no clapping. Zero. It is meant to be a quiet, contemplative moment. And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Modern Clothing and Rules. Generally speaking, Japan is actually incredibly accommodating. There isn't some super strict dress code just for wandering around the grounds of most shrines or temples. Casual wear, jeans and sneakers, is perfectly fine for a general visit. However, you absolutely should avoid overexposure, so definitely no beachwear or clubbing outfits. Keep your clothes clean. And most importantly, always remember to take off your hats and sunglasses when passing through the gates and when standing near the altars out of respect. Now, if you are stepping inside for a formal prayer or a special blessing from a priest, well, the rules change entirely. Suits for men and modest dresses or pantsuits for women are expected. T-shirts, shorts, and bare feet are strictly forbidden. Oh, and here is a super fascinating cultural detail. You must strictly avoid wearing fur or animal prints. In Buddhism especially, animal prints symbolize the taking of a life, which is obviously a major taboo in a sacred space dedicated to peace and nonviolence. When it comes to capturing memories, exterior shots of the stunning architecture are usually totally fine. However, taking photos of the inner altars is often strictly prohibited, so always be on the lookout for signage. Also, Japan is super famous for its anime pilgrimages, where fans visit real-life locations featured in their favorite shows. If you're doing this, which is awesome by the way, enjoy the moment, but definitely avoid striking big, disruptive poses for social media. You don't want to disturb others who are there to genuinely pray. Ultimately, if you ever find yourself wondering whether an outfit you're wearing or an action you're about to take is appropriate, just ask yourself this one simple question. Would I do the same thing in a grand cathedral or a sacred space back in my own country? It's a pretty provocative question, but honestly, it's the best compass you have. If the answer is no, it's definitely best to hold back and just observe. Because, understanding brings joy. When you actually know why you're washing your hands a certain way, or why you clap at one place but stand in silent gasho at another, you are actively participating in centuries of incredible Japanese culture. Thank you so much for watching this explainer. So the next time you step through a torii or sanmon gate, how will you choose to leave your mark on Japan's sacred history?